and the town of Dead Hollow sat like a scab on the edge of the desert, dried up and waiting to be peeled off the land. Smoke curled above the saloon like lazy ghosts. Inside, the heat clung to the walls, soaked into the worn-wood floors, and mixed with sweat, cigar ash, and desperation. At the far table, a man with a faded duster and a face full of shadows sat hunched over a hand of cards. He hadn't spoken more than 5 words all night. Folks called him Holt, though no one was sure if it was his first or last name. He wore silence like armor. Scars ran along the side of his jaw, and the way he watched the room, every movement, every twitch, told you he'd seen worse than cards and cheap whiskey. Across from him sat a Chinese trader named Zhang. Thin, nervous, reeking of rosewater and fear. His luck had gone sour an hour ago, but he stayed in sweat, soaking through his silk collar. He had nothing left in gold or coin, nothing but one last bet. Zhang laid his final card face down and cleared his throat. I raise 5 girls. The table stilled. A few nearby cowhands chuckled, but no one truly laughed. From the back room came 5 girls, young, frightened, wearing plain linen dresses, hair braided in the old way. They looked barely out of childhood, eyes wide, limbs trembling like willows in wind. They're workers, Zhang added quickly. Trained for house or kitchen. Good value. Holt didn't move. He glanced at the girls, then down at his cards. The room watched, breath tight. He laid them out slow, straight flush, queen high. Zhang's shoulders dropped. His bluff was nothing. A pair at best. No one clapped. No one whistled. Holt stood. Let's go, he said. No one dared stop him. He didn't take the pot. Didn't look at Zhang again. Just turned to the girls and nodded toward the door. They followed like ghosts. Outside, the wind picked up grit and threw it sideways. Holt led them to a battered wagon hitched with 1 mule and a stubborn horse. He helped each girl up into the back, without touching them, just offering a steady hand and quiet eyes. The youngest, no more than 10, hesitated. He crouched beside her. You're safe now, he said. She climbed aboard. They rode out past the edge of town, past the dry creek bed and the burnt cottonwoods, until the only thing around them was dust and heat. Holt stopped near an outcropping of rocks, started a fire, and passed around jerky and a water skin. The girls huddled together, whispering in Mandarin, flinching every time he moved. He kept his distance, eating slow, one hand always near his sidearm. The eldest among them, 17 or 18, sharp eyes and clenched jaw, finally stepped forward. She pointed to the fire, then to herself. Work, she asked. He shook his head. You don't work for me. You ride with me. She didn't understand. Not fully, but something in his tone softened the fear in her. She bowed, small and formal, and sat near the flames. Night fell hard in the desert. Coyotes howled far off. The fire snapped, and stars spilled across the sky like scattered bullets. Holt sat apart, sharpening his knife by lamplight. He didn't sleep much. Neither did they. By dawn, smoke rose behind them, Dead Hollow waking up with whiskey and regret. They were already moving, wagon creaking over stone. The girls said little. Holt said less. Midday, they crossed paths with a rider. Dusty boots, rifle-strapped cross-saddle, badge shaped like a star but dulled by blood and time. He tipped his hat at Holt, eyed the girls, then rode on. Trouble didn't show its face until that night. They camped in a gulch lined with mesquite. The fire was small, hidden low. Holt was skinning a rabbit when he froze, knife halfway, through muscle. The sound came again. Hoofbeats. He dropped the carcass, doused the flame, motioned the girls behind the rocks. One clung to his leg before he gently peeled her off. Stay down, he whispered. The first shot cracked the air, echoed off stone like thunder. Holt dove, rolled, drew and fired in the same breath. A shadow fell off a ledge, groaned once, then went still. Another flash from the ridge. He dropped low, waited, then fired twice fast. Screams. Then came silence. A whimper behind him. One of the girls, Li Mei, he remembered now, was bleeding, thin red line across her upper arm. He ripped his shirt sleeve, wrapped her quick and tight, carried her like a sack through dust and brush until they were far from the fire. His breath came hard, but his grip didn't falter. They made camp again under a bluff, no fire this time. Moonlight lit their faces pale. Li Mei looked up at him as he tied the last knot in the bandage. "You why?" He didn't answer at first, just sat down beside her, hand still shaking from the fight. Then he said, quiet, "Because I once had a daughter. She needed saving too." The girls stared. The silence held longer than the wind. He looked to the ridge, jaw tight. "They'll be back," he said. Then he leaned back against a rock, pistol in his lap, and closed one eye. Li Mei watched him a long time before lying down near his boots, hand still on her bandaged arm. The girl with the small knife never slept. She just held it tight, eyes on the dark, waiting for anything that dared to come near. They traveled by silence and shadows. Every morning came with wind-carved ridges, dry creeks, and eyes over shoulders. Holt kept the wagon moving eastward, toward the old Apache trails he knew well enough to vanish into. The girls were quieter now, but no longer flinching at every creak of the wheels. Li Mei sat up front beside him, her arms stiff but healing. She watched the horizon like she expected it to open up and swallow them whole. The youngest girl, Unlan, he'd learned, held onto her small knife like it was stitched to her hand. She didn't speak much, just watched him from under long black bangs. The others took turns tending to one another, collecting kindling, brushing down the mule, and mimicking Holt's rough movements with growing steadiness. On the 5th day, they reached the Rio Salado. Its banks were low, the water moving fast and brown. Holt pulled the wagon to a stop, jaw set. "We'll cross before dusk," he said. Li Mei looked at the river, then at the mule, then at him. "Safe?" "No." He stripped off his coat, tightened the packs, and led the animals to the bank. The water bit cold. The mule balked. The girls followed behind the wagon, holding hands like a single chain. Halfway across, a cry rang out. One of the girls, Yiling, slipped on a mossy stone and vanished under the current. Without a word, Holt dropped his rifle and dove. The river gripped like claws. He caught her dress just before it slipped free, yanked her up, kicked hard against the weight of the current. Gasping, soaked, they stumbled to the far bank. The others rushed to help, hands trembling, voices panicked. Yiling coughed up half the river before she clung to him, sobbing. Holt didn't speak. He just looked at the girls, water dripping from his hat brim. "Next time," he said, breath rough, "you don't cross without a rope." That night, they built a fire deep in a box canyon. The walls held back the wind, and the stars blinked down, quiet witnesses. Holt sat by the flames, rubbing a cut across his palm. Li Mei approached, a piece of cloth in hand. She knelt, wrapped his hand gently, fingers unsure. "You saved her," she said. "She's one of mine now." Li Mei's brow furrowed. "Yours?" He nodded. "Not like cattle. Like kin." Something changed in her then. A tension loosened. She sat beside him, stared into the fire. "I was sold when I was 9, she said. "Thought I'd die in that house in San Francisco. Then brought here. Like luggage. Thought men only knew one thing." Holt didn't look at her, but his voice dropped low. "Some do. Some don't." The fire crackled between them. One of the girls laughed softly in the distance, chasing fireflies like they were children again. For the first time, Holt smiled, small but real. Then came the howl. Not a coyote. Holt was on his feet, rifle in hand. "Stay here," he barked. He followed the sound, careful steps over rock. The wind carried the scent, musky, sharp. The bear came from the dark, like thunder. A black blur, roaring, claws tearing earth. 2 girls were near its path, screamed, froze. Holt fired. Missed. No time to reload. He grabbed a burning branch, shouted, waved it high. The bear reared, swiped, caught Holt across the shoulder. Pain roared through him. He didn't stop. He jammed the firebrand into its face. The bear screamed, twisted, and vanished into the brush. Then darkness. When he came to, he was on the ground, blood down his side. Li Mei knelt over him, stitching flesh with shaking hands. The other girls held him still, whispered prayers in the language he didn't know but understood. "You stupid," Li Mei muttered, eyes wet. "Could have died. Could have," he rasped. "Didn't." One of the girls brought a warm rag to his brow. Another fed the fire. Unlan stood guard with a knife. Later, as the moon climbed higher, Holt blinked toward the stars, pain dulled by whiskey and weariness. He felt Li Mei's hand resting lightly on his. "You still going to take us east?" she asked. He nodded once. "Then we stay. We fight. Together." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Far off in the canyon, something watched them. A boot print marked the edge of a trail. Fresh, deep, and burned into the tree beside it. 3 slashes in the shape of a crooked dragon. They'd been found. The air was heavy with dust and warning. They found the old trading post just as the sun cracked against the cliffs, broken roof, rotted walls, but stone enough to make a stand. Holt scanned the ridgeline. The tracks were close now. Men. 5 at least, maybe 6, all heading straight for them. He dropped the reins, turned to the girls. "We hold here." Li Mei nodded. "We help. No heroes," he said. "If it gets bad, you run east. Cross the flats. Don't look back." But they didn't nod this time. They stood their ground. Even Unlan, her little knife now strapped to her belt, eyes sharp as flint. By nightfall, they'd stacked barrels by the windows, laid glass shards beneath the sill. Holt crouched in the dirt, wrapping his shoulder tight, blood already soaking the bandage. His fingers trembled, not from fear, but from knowing what was coming. Li Mei knelt beside him, tucked a loaded pistol into his belt. "You fight for us," she whispered. "Now we fight for you." The first shot rang out just after midnight. A rider galloped past, shouting. Then gunfire lit the night, quick, sharp, hungry. Holt fired from the doorway, dropped the first man clean. The second got closer, too close, until Li Mei struck him down with a shovel, screaming through tears. Another bullet tore through the window, splintered wood inches from Unlan's face. She didn't cry. She raised the pistol Holt had given her and fired twice, breath shallow, hands shaking. Silence. Then a body hit the porch. Smoke choked the air. A lantern had shattered near the dry hay, flames climbing fast. Screams echoed through the timber bones of the building. Holt staggered to his feet, bleeding bad, vision fogged. A shadow loomed, gun raised. He couldn't lift his arm in time. The shot came from behind. The man dropped. Unlan stood just beyond, her small hands gripping a revolver too big for her frame. "Don't die," she said, voice trembling. Holt dropped to one knee, smiled through blood, didn't plan on it. The last of the attackers fled into the blaze, swallowed by smoke and fire. When dawn rose, only the stone bones of the post remained. The girls sat in the ash, clutching one another alive, and Holt, burnt, battered, but breathing, whispered to the wind, "They're mine now, and I'll kill the world before I give 'em up."